Live and direct, back with another rendition of Monday Night Live right here on Amazon Fire TV. My name is Mo Rock alongside Dr. Natalie Forrest. And I want to start off by saying, Dr. Natalie Forrest, how are you doing on this wonderful Monday evening?
I am better than excited. I am awesome. I can't wait for the show. I can't wait for what's coming next in general. I'm just completely, elevated and all of that.
Wow, I like the all of that. I think the all of that really summarized it well. I'm super excited too for a couple different reasons. One, we have an amazing lineup this week on the show. And two, we're covering a subject matter that is very, very important, exceptionally important, and really all facets of life, whether you're in sales, whether you want to improve your ability to have a healthy relationship, whether you want to grow your business. Communication is always key, Natalie. You know, experts in communication generally have a much easier life in all facets, right? Because how you communicate and how you enroll others in your vision is really the number one quality of a leader. And this show's all about leadership. And, it might sound general, but today we're really going to go into the nitty gritty and specifics because we have a wide range of real interesting people. We have a couple that just does such a great job communicating with each other that we actually have from overseas in a different country coming with us live. And we have a public figure and we have really some real incredible people, a professional broadcaster. And Natalie, how excited are you to dive into the subject of communication?
Well, I can't wait because it's so important. Like if you and I don't communicate, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Just saying. And so, everything that we do is communication, and communication is not just the words. It's the way we look at each other, don't look at each other, our hand gestures, all of that is communication. And it's so crucial because there are also cultural differences in communication. So, I know that the couple is not just from a different continent and a different country, but they're also going to have different cultural experiences. So everybody who's on the lineup tonight is going to have a different cultural experience in communication. And that's really crucial as well in leadership.
I agree. And a couple quick housekeeping notes. First of all, we want to thank one of our top supporters, Pankaj Dayal, who's always the first to comment each week. We appreciate you so much. Secondly, Natalie, quick housekeeping note for those of you watching. We have our next Los Angeles Tribune event coming up officially. And each Monday, we're actually going to bring you guys a couple of the speakers and let you guys know about this powerful lineup. But as of now, we want you guys to mark your calendars. February 20th and 21st, we have Dr. Joe Vitale. We have Lisa Nichols, a couple real powerful people. You may remember them from the film The Secret, or maybe you've attended their courses or read their books. They've sold tens of millions of books combined. And we're super excited to bring both of them live on February 20th and 21st. You'll find out more information on how you can register next week. But mark your calendars, folks, because this event is going to be bigger than the last event. And we're going to get bigger, bolder, and stronger. What was it that Kanye said? Faster, bigger, better. But anyways, so let's go ahead and roll in with this incredible lineup. I mean, look at this awesome group of people that we have.
Yeah, see, they're already communicating. They're waving. See?
That's right. Okay, guys, we want to thank everyone for watching this week's show. Be sure to swing by next week. So let's start with a brief introduction from everyone. And I want to start off the intro with someone who I think has a really cool name, Tehran Glover. The name Tehran, I mean, what a beautiful city. I've actually been there 4 times, and it's a beautiful city with beautiful people and a beautiful history. So first of all, I want to know how to, what is the reasoning that you have the name Tehran Glover? Because I'm personally curious. And secondly, a little intro about yourself and just what does the word communication mean to you in a short, simple term? So let's start with Tehran, then we'll move along. Go ahead, Tehran. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you much, actually, for having me here as well. Yeah, so I like to tell people my name is Tehran, but with an extra N. So I have an extra N on my name. And as far as the responsibility, I don't know what was in the punch bowls in the 70s. I'm just a result of that. So I have no control over that one. So my name again is Tehran Glover. I'm the co-founder of I Do Systems. We're a tech company, and we put out software solutions specifically for coaches, for business coaches. And so we created a tool that actually does that from an automated perspective. And actually, interesting about this evening's topic, it takes care of the communication that's necessary, that lengthens that process, that magnifies the cost of it, and that most of the time doesn't result in the actual solution being solved. So that's pretty much who I am right here. And communication is, without it, I can't tell you. I'm gonna tell you this. This software is all robust and all this technical stuff, and it really gets confusing and get really wordy. But if there weren't experts in every department effectively communicating the information between each other, the software can never come out. Because me, myself,
Thank you, Tehran. Thank you. And I'm glad that you're here, because communication in business and communication in technology is very important to have. So let's swing along and go to the couple that we have. And please let us know where you're from, because we know that you're actually joining us from quite a long way away from Los Angeles. And a brief introduction from the two of you. And what does the word communication mean for you guys?
I'll start. Hi, my name is Bess. I'm from Epic Wealth Academy. We help business owners and entrepreneurs market their message to monetize. What communication means to me is everything. As a person who lost her voice totally due to medical error 4 years ago, it means everything. Imagine this, being trapped in a body without the ability to be able to actually communicate your message. You feel invisible. It's beautiful to join you today and be visible. Yeah,
love it.
Take it away.
I don't know how to follow up on that one. Hey, I'm the lucky guy who gets to be the king of the queen. My name is Sohan. We're based out of Melbourne, Australia, and I'm the co-founder of Epic Wealth Academy. We specialize in having to help entrepreneurs and business owners with the ability to want to make their marketing message really simple and fun and easy on the internet, doing that through video and being able to speak on stages around the world. What's communication for me, Mo? You know what? I think for me, and I believe, communication is listening without having to speak. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, because then he knew that listening was twice as tough as talking. And so listening to the unspoken, for me, that's a big one. And we know that when we can do that, both in a relationship, especially for us men, having to listen for the unspoken, that really hits home. But that really transfers over to business, and learning from business owners and learning from clients about what's really happening apart from what we're seeing in the obvious is really that part of communication that needs to occur. And that's really powerful in listening. So that's a strong belief that I've got.
Well, Sohan, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because a lot of times people think they're listening, but really what they're doing is they're just thinking about what to say while someone else is talking. But authentic listening is when you're really in a moment with someone. And there's nothing more precious than having a true, authentic moment with another human being. Speaking of authentic human beings, let's go right there, smack dab in the middle. Goldie is a professional communicator. Some of you that are fans of professional sports and entertainment may remember her from national television when she was the host of TNA Wrestling with Hulk Hogan. You might have seen her on TLC. You might have seen her on different TV reality shows she's been a part of. So Goldie, as a professional communicator, as also a contributor to the Los Angeles Tribune, what does the word communication mean to you? And also go ahead and do a brief intro, even though I did one for you, in your own words, a brief intro. And what does communication mean for you?
I appreciate it, Mo. And since your friend over there got a chance to tell his name and story, my name is Goldilocks. And how you doing? And I do like to break and enter, just like the storybook character, B&E it's called, and eat food that's not mine. That's what my life is all about. So, stealing and communication. I had written down in the notes when you had asked us all to do this, Mo, about communication. And I really agree with, let me put my glasses on. Of course, you take, hello. There's somebody saying hi. And then as soon as she goes, I can't see his name and the gorgeous woman that you don't even need a voice, honey. Like, I know you feel, lonely today without a voice, but have you looked at yourself lately? You're gorgeous. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Can you go back to her name and his name so that I can address him? So it's Sohan and Voss. Okay. So I agree wholeheartedly with the listening aspect of it. And as Mo was saying, in sports entertainment and in wrestling, a lot of other jobs that I've had, if I don't listen, maybe I'm just, the bizatch of the room, or people talk behind my back. In sports entertainment and in wrestling, if you mess up the communication, somebody dies. Somebody's neck gets snapped, or, you break their back or destroy them, or like I said, terminate them. So communication and listening, like you said, Mo, when you're not just thinking of the next thing to say, but like we have to like literally sit there and make sure we know exactly what's going to go on and what's choreographed. And then even then it doesn't happen. It's a bigger than life, really paying attention. And one thing that I've learned in business and in touring is, ask for feedback after a presentation or a meeting, and be humble, listen, but ask for the feedback, because then you really find out, did people listen to what you had to say? Did they absorb it? Here's your chance to, really validate them, but drive your point home again. So that's what communication and entertainment, and I'm sure in everybody's different areas and jobs is so key with what I do, because like I said, sometimes we have people's lives in our hands more than theoretically speaking.
In your case, lives are literally at stake in communication. You said, you could be paralyzed for life if you miscommunicate in that industry. Yep. But the same is true in business. The life of your business is predicated on communication. The life of your relationships predicated on communication. Literally, living life and the quality of our life is all predicated on communication. Michelle, I know that you understand communication a lot as someone that does a lot of one-on-one work for families and individuals. Go ahead and just give a brief intro, and what does communication mean for you?
And thank Mo and Dr. Natalie for having me on the panel again today. And communicate as a financial advisor, communication is the most important thing that I bring to the table for a client. Because if I don't listen to what they need, where they're at, what their goals and their desires are, there is no way that I could do my job. It's just impossible. And I think that's one of the things that really sets people apart in business, is as friends, as, just human beings, is, are we willing to listen? Just like everybody's saying, you have, 2 ears, 1 mouth, and it's learning to use your ears is one of the skills that I think that needs to be taught in like kindergarten and forward, because there's so many people that it's difficult for them to be able to listen and communicate and to actually ask for what you need and you want as well. Right. So that's a really big part of communication is not only listening to what the other person is saying, but also being willing to share your point of view and what you need and what you want. And that's a really important part when I'm sitting down with the clients. I need to draw that out of them, because people would rather talk about like death and politics versus talking about their financial planning. So it's important to be able to then also adapt to other people's communication style. And I think that's a really big key in business as well, is, are you willing to shift over to different communication styles, so that way you can be on the same wavelength as them.
Awesome, Michelle. Now, I spoke earlier about being present and listening, and the next person I know, she knows how to do that. Carla, what does communication mean for you? And just give a little bit of an introduction as well.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you for having me on here again today. It's so lovely to meet all of you new faces. My name is Carla Elizondo. I am an associate marriage and family therapist based in Los Angeles, California, and I'm also the host of a new show on Instagram called Inside Talk Show. Mo is my most recent guest, episode coming out soon. And communication for me, when you kind of put that topic in, I was like, okay, I don't want to research. I want to just intuitively what comes up, because it's such a important topic. And like you said, we all have different viewpoints. And what came to me was kind of the nonverbal. I think somebody already mentioned it. I feel like we all have these antenna points, and we're all taking in so much information like satellites, and we communicate nonverbally, energetically. And like everybody touched on, we hear a lot, but are we listening? I think we listen with our emotions. We don't really, something doesn't really land until our emotions are involved in it. And when someone's heart's in it, when they're listening with their emotions and they're really hearing you and listening. And you can tell when someone's glossed over or spaced out. And like Michelle said, when I'm with clients, I have to listen, because number one, that's my job. And number two, they know when you're present. I think being present. So all the nonverbals, really using your energy, really tapping in is so important, because it's a lot of the nonverbals, the actions you take. Like they say, don't talk, take action. Your actions speak louder than your words as far as communication goes. So for me right now, what's hitting is a lot of the nonverbal communication is the most important.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Carla. And we'll roll back to that very soon. So next up is actually someone who, if you're a reader of the Los Angeles Tribune, you've probably read some of her work. She's had some really popular articles and columns that have gone viral. Caitlin Mendoza, one of our columnists. Caitlin, go ahead and just give a brief intro about yourself, and also what does communication mean to you?
Yeah. So my name's Caitlin. I'm a writer for the Los Angeles Tribune. I love it. I've been writing for them since April. I've wrote some articles from like how COVID affected me with finding like a job, from like becoming a little foodie article, even like how my friend published her own little small poetry book from college. So kind of scattered all over while writing for the Tribune. So that's been super fun. But communication, kind of like what everyone said, I kind of have to agree with almost what everyone says. I'm kind of looking at it, when I first think of communication, I automatically think of a relationship, just because that's just, I'm more emotional and I'm more like intuitive with like my friends and my family. And I'm very just like, I'm just in touch with my feelings. Like I'm a Cancer. That's how I always say it. But anyways, I kind of feel like kind of what Carla even said, it's not verbally, it's how you listen. And then you have to really see how people are going to take if they're listening, like their actions that they do after. And I think that's what communication is. If you're truly listening, to see if that person's going to do what their partner said to them. So I think it's like more than just listening. It's like, it's the act they take after, because you want to say, if let's say the person's not changing, they're obviously not listening to what's wrong and they're not taking feedback or advice. And then I think that's just so important when it comes to communication. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Caitlin. Next up is the Los Angeles Tribune senior columnist. Much like Caitlin, a lot of her work has gone viral. She's written a lot about personal development, a lot about mindset, all the subject matters that I personally love to do deep dives in. So one of our more popular columnists, Gina, welcome, Gina Kegel. And little brief introduction about yourself and what does communication mean for you? And by the way, you're also an energy worker, which I think I'm interested to hear your take on how communication is involved in that, which I don't know about, but I'm sure people are kind of curious as well. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mo. Yeah, I have probably about 5 jobs. Every time I count, there's another one. I am primarily an energy healing transformation coach. So I sit in Zoom meetings for 4 or 5 hours a day, listening to people, listening to the energy that's flowing through my body and getting more information from spirit guides and chakras and all that great stuff. But that's me. I'm the resident hippie in this group, in the Tribune team. And so along those lines,
undercover hippie. Gina, you're not alone. I'm just undercover about it. I don't want anyone to figure that out. I don't want anyone to figure that out about me yet.
I just sort of like, I'm just very out about it. Very happy to do that. Yeah. So my column for the Tribune is The Journey Centered Life. And I also am the executive editor for Radiance Magazine, which focuses primarily, of course, on spiritual, personal development, holistic lifestyle. So that's my little spiel. And to me, communication works best when it comes from the namaste perspective. People say namaste to each other. And what that means, generally speaking, is that the light, the soul, the spark, the divine spark in me sees and acknowledges the divine spark in you. And when you have your communication from divine spark to divine spark, from heart to heart, then the communication happens so much more beautifully. And when I write anything for the Tribune or for Radiance or anything else, I ask for help in creating content that vibrates at a frequency that will touch readers and connect deeply with people. So that's my woo-woo perspective on it.
That is so powerful, Gina. I mean, really, ultimately, if you're in the moment and if you're authentically listening and if you're 100% present, I think that is the highest form of communication. I want to go now to the middle of the screen, because what I see is a couple who, in my estimation, practices this kind of communication. And I want the two of you to kind of start this conversation. And for the rest of you, this is not a Q&A. If you feel inspired, speak what's inspired in your heart. This is not a Q&A. So don't wait for Natalie or myself to ask you guys questions. Just speak what you're inspired to speak. But I do want to start with the two of you. Share a little bit about how you guys met and what communication has meant for the two of you but also share your story. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Damn,
Alright, go
I'm
for
excited
it.
about that. I'll tell you about that. This is a story that till this day, and I think for the rest of my life. And when I say life, I'm not talking about human life. I'm talking about spiritual life. I will always be as excited, jumping out of my skin in whatever skin I show up in the next life. Okay, this is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because I've been searching for a soul for 40 plus years. I'm 42 now. I was searching for a soul for 42 years. She's the same, searching for my soul for 40. We've been going missing and doing the whole, trying to clap and going the other way, because for some reason we had to learn certain lessons to show up to be able to get together and communicate. So again, one of the things that the way we met was very random. Till this day, I don't know who connected who on Facebook, but I saw her on Facebook, and I had no intention of wanting to think in that direction. But essentially, both of us have been through a lot of trauma in our life in terms of relationships, and there are degrees of trauma. Everyone goes through trauma. Every human being goes through trauma, but there are degrees of it. She's gone to the extreme of having to die and come back to life, which we'll tell you about. But I died emotionally and I came back to life. And after that, we finally learned the lesson because we had to show up. And when we did show up, it was mind blowing. I mean, mind blowing, because get this, I see her on the 3rd or 4th of March last year. I then communicate with her on the 13th of March. 19th of March, where there's no coincidences, our spirits bring us together again in a program, which was an online relationship challenge or a workshop for 5 days.
Boom.
And we're like these little kids sitting in the back bench. The videos are on, the courses are on, the guys are doing their thing. We're busy messaging each other in the back, but our spirits are talking to one another in a very deep manner, just exploring. We were not flirting. None of that was happening. But we got to a place in that chat to realize that, there was soul recognition.
And I'm deeply psychic.
She is.
Yeah.
And
By birth.
there's a part that I didn't share before that was in that what happened a day later, I felt this this crazy amount of resonance that was from the tip of my head from the crown of my head to the tip of my toes. And I was going, I've never experienced this before. And I was actually watching a friend of mine heal someone on Facebook Live. He's an amazing healer. And I thought it was him tapping into my vortex. Now, I didn't know the word vortex. So if you guys are wondering what vortex is and you're quickly going and doing a Google search, it's cool. Because I was like, I didn't know that, but I was just using that fancy word, right? Anyway, so I reached out to him and I said, dude, are you tapping into my vortex? And he didn't reply. But then after like a few minutes, he calls me and he goes, bro, I don't know. I was sleeping. So I don't know. My spirit leaves my body, goes around the world, heals people and does this thing. So I don't know, maybe. And as he's saying this, I get a text message, because guess what? My entire world that I know, out of all my friends around the thousands of people around the world, I contact 2 people. That was him and her randomly. Random. I didn't have a reason. I only got to speak to her 3 times. And I send that with the risk of going, she might think I'm crazy, but I'm taking the chance asking her anyway. So I asked her the same question. So I see a text as he comes back to me, as he's talking to me, a text that says yes. So it was her tapping into so she was communicating with me, my spirit. And before you know it, this is the 19th or 20th of March, 22nd of March. So 2 days later, I'm flying across to Melbourne from Sydney to do a talk. So we caught up on the 22nd for the first time to see each other. And the moment we saw, there was no conversation. I got to tell you this. I got out the bus. Picture this. I get out of the bus. I cross the road with my bag. She's sitting in her car waiting, freaking out, going, I don't know. I mean, the human side of her is going, I don't know, the head talk. Yeah. But the body and the heart, the spirit's going, man, I get this, because she knew it, right? And I show up in front of her car. She gets out of the car. She comes right in front of me. And the moment we hug, it was a hug. You know that movie, The Secret, where you see this vibrational visual of the whole thing going across the city? That was what happened here on Spencer Street in Melbourne. I don't know if the Melbournians know this, but that's definitely what happened.
Okay, guys, shameless plug. If you do like the film Secret, be sure to join us February 20th and 21st. We'll do a deep dive of it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I saw an opportunity. I'm a marketer, okay? I saw an opportunity. Go ahead.
Do it, bro. Do it. You got to do it. And I'm telling you this, that was like that literally felt the most unbelievable amount of unspoken communication and language that we had. And it's never died down ever. I mean, things have been so, people talk about telepathy as being a freak show kind of situation when you experience it, but it's insane. Like a few days later, my video is gone off. Don't worry, bring it back. But a few days later, I'm on my couch and I have this feeling of like, I get this, like someone's, hitting my tummy. And I was wondering what that is. I randomly reach out to my phone. I send her a text message and I go, "Are you all right, babe?" Guess what her reply is, guys? She replies she calls me actually. And she goes, "I just pulled over. I'm okay. How did you know?" "Because I just pulled over. I was going to the supermarket, but I've got this pain in my stomach."
Is that you?
And I was like, damn, we just felt it. Yeah. And she felt it. She felt it with my parents. This is like insane stuff we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. This is communication 2.0, right? It's a whole new level of communication because it's the unspoken that is so important to listen to. And we can tune into that because we did. And we've tuned into that a lot of times. We tune out of it many times as well because that's having a human experience. But we certainly know when we get present and we're there in the moment, we can experience that communication where we don't have to feel. I mean, when was the last time you were sitting on the couch and you were thinking you wanted to add some turmeric into your chai and you're thinking it, and then your spouse or whoever it is you're with comes out of the bedroom randomly, goes to the kitchen, opens a pantry, pulls out the turmeric bottle, keeps it on the bench of the kitchen and goes, "Here you go, babe." And you look at it and go, "I didn't say anything. This is freaking crazy," right?
Yeah.
And she did that.
That's the power of being able to actually listen to your soul. I don't call it articulation. I call it articulation. And when you have that power to be able to, tap into what it is that your soul wants you to know, you live on a very different level of communication because you're not just hearing the outside world and the busyness, but you're hearing your soul speak through that silence. I'll give you an example of that. On the 28th of February, before we met March 13th, 28th of February, I kept getting this tap in my soul. It just wouldn't let me get on with my day. It's just like, Vass. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Just leave me alone. I need to get on with my day. Wouldn't let me go. It said to me, "You must put up on Facebook." I'm like, what? You must put up on Facebook exactly what you want to create your Love Academy. And you actually have to put the exact attributes you want in this person that's going to help you build this. I put the exact attributes all the way from, marketing, individual in business, vegetarian, everything that I wanted. And I'm thinking, I was so hesitant to actually press that button because I'm like, what am I doing? Vass, listen. Okay, so I did. Press that button. Exactly 13 days later, if this isn't manifestation and communication with source, I don't know what is. 13 days later, he shows up. 4 weeks prior to showing up, he became a vegetarian, didn't he?
That's crazy.
He's in marketing. Everything that I put down on that list, boom, it happened.
Just like
That's
that.
amazing. And if you're a single bachelor, it's all the single gentlemen watching this from around the world, write down, are you tapping into my vortex? Because I think that is one of the most powerful. That's one of the most powerful opening lines I've heard in my life, brother Sohan. So respect to you, and thank you for sharing that bit of wisdom to all the men out there. Use that, and then let us know how it worked for you. Since you guys talked about energy, I'd like to segue to Gina. And as I mentioned earlier, don't wait for Natalie or myself to segue, but just to get the ball rolling a little more. Gina, what's your interpretation of what the two of them just spoke about as an energy worker?
So there are so many things in your story, guys, that is so beautiful and special. What you two have going on is, I don't know if it's twin flame, that might be something different, but definitely you two have a soul contract. And being in an energetic state that allows you to identify and follow those pushes and nudges was key. And that was definitely huge in bringing the two of you together. That's so special. And so communication is not just with other people. There are so many more opportunities for communication with our energetic helpers. That's beautiful and wonderful and divinely supported. Oh gosh, there was something else you said too. Darn it. I'll think of it, or I'll say it if I think of it. Move on to somebody else. Carla, what do you think?
I thank you. You read my mind, psychic going on this group. Honestly, I just think this is such a cool conversation because I think I mentioned in the last episode that I really think that the world has been so conditioned to pay attention to the outside, the communications we see with our eyes, we hear with our ears, we speak with our mouth. And really it's an inside game, and it's equivalent to the flat earth or the round earth. We're really getting into the energetic, and God, Gina and Voss and so on. Like, you guys, it's like this is the future. This is it. And I say people will look in the future generations back at us and see how ignorant, not in a derogatory term, but just the lack of awareness we had at the power we have. And we all have that psychic muscle. I think the biggest changes, and we talked about it on the last episode of listening to your intuition. The biggest communication hits that I've ever gotten were nonverbal and from something else, like the whispers that came to me to make that change. Or my biggest psychic experience that I love sharing is I was in Hawaii and I woke up early with this. I had a dream, a very vivid dream of my brother. He was crouched on the floor, crying. He was in trouble. He's like, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And I was like, it was more than a dream. I woke up and I'm like, oh my God, this is real. And he was in California. And I didn't want to freak him out because the time difference. I didn't want to call too early and be like, I'm on vacation. Like, hey, so did he come home last night? Because I was afraid. He was at that age where he was probably out the night before. And so I waited for a decent hour and I called and they're like, no, you know what? He didn't. And I'm like, dang it, what happened? So then we did get news that he gotten in some trouble. And so it was such a strong cord between him and I for whatever reason. I don't know if he was thinking about me consciously, but I definitely picked up in his vortex. Is that what you kids call it? The vortex. But yeah, so there's so much going on that we don't know. And I just eat it up. It's just, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think telepathy, energy, or, just, you mentioned you studied psychology, right? It's just getting into somebody else's space. And I think communication, if I heard everybody correctly thus far, aside from energy, right? Which to me is crucial. But aside from that, it's also really the listening and the allowing another person to be who they are, not trying to tell them who they are, but just listening and being open. Right. I mean, I know Goldie is always open. So, I don't know, but I know she wants to say something. I see it in her face.
Yeah, I think there was something she shared with all of us before the show started.
No, not that open.
Not that open? Okay, never mind.
Gina said she remembered what she was going to say before I speak.
I did, just after I stopped talking. Thank you, Goldie.
Yeah.
The two of you, Voss and Sohan, you were talking about manifestation, and that's a little key tidbit I want to throw out there. We talk about this in marketing too. There is the why, the how, and the what. So you have to get clear on the why. Why do you want what you want? You want a partner? Why? What's it going to bring into your life? What do you want? Just like your beautiful list of it, specifically what you wanted. You have to place a clear order with the universe if you want to get something clear. And then the how part, the how part is not your job. That part's the universe's job. Yeah. So it's so funny you told that story. My husband did the exact same thing to me, or for me, to get me. He made himself a list probably 10 years before we ever met. Yeah, wow. And voila, lucky guy he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Now, I want to get in. I actually want to get in this conversation because because the thing is, I have this conviction that we are not really supposed to know every single element of our lives. And where's this balance between let me create a list, and I totally understand it. Look, I get it. I understand. the power of intention. I understand the works of Napoleon Hill and The Secret, and this idea of really being specific and not letting the universe give us something vague, but really being, I get that. But at the same time, isn't part of the magic of life the mystery? Isn't part of the magic of life not knowing exactly what it's going to look like? Where do we have that balance between having a direction, but at the same time being okay with whatever it's going to look like? You know, who wants to delve in on this? This is open forum.
Well, so you make your list. You talk about what you want, but you don't say, I only want these things. So putting what you do want still leaves a lot of open room for allowing the person, as Natalie so beautifully said, allowing the person to be themselves genuinely, and coming together, choosing to come together from that place.
I'm gonna bring up a point there and add to that. You know, very, very clever question, Mo. I love that question because it's a conversation that everyone gets stuck on. And I mean everyone, whether it's business or whether it's relationship. We see this happening all the time, right? I mean, one thing I believe is balance really, really messes people up. Harmony, on the flip side, really creates melody in any part of life, whether it's work or whether it's relationships and love. And what do I mean by that? I'll give you a real serious example. I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to be a father. And you know how many times I became a father? 5 times. The 6th time I became a father, but it was different this time. All 5 times I became a father, I didn't have them. I became and I lost the opportunity, right? For good reasons, for really good reasons. In the moments of those 5 times, it wasn't fun. I can promise you that. I mean, I went through the whole thing of the termination story, the abortion story, the miscarriage story. Went through all that stuff. So in that entire process, everything happened for the greatness of the good, which is existence now. What we see. Why? Because when we're so attached to the outcome of how it should be and create and go after that so much, not realizing, to your point, Mo, that there is this part of life where life will create and give you exactly what you want, but in a way that's meant for us. And it's usually in an unexpected time, unexpected moment.
And in a different form.
And in an unexpected form.
Example.
The 6th time I spoke about, my daughter showed up. She's my third daughter.
His eyes.
That's right. She's got mommy's hair, daddy's eyes. Look at her closely. Tell me she's cute like daddy. I mean, sorry, mommy. She was sleeping. Sorry, baby. She's 17 months old, baby. But she's not just a puppy. She's not a dog. Like, I mean, listen, I can be called a dog owner by the guys who are not spiritually connected to understand communication. But guess what? I'm going to get that video fixed for you guys in a second. But guess what? What really matters is the fact that she's a soul, guys.
Yeah.
She's a soul. She's a soul that is just like you and me, with emotions and connections and that feeling of presence and communication with unconditional love and state of peace, which is so required in everything I just said for business or relationships. And that's something that I had to learn. And the other part of it was the outcome. We speak about not being attached to the outcome and allowing the universe or God, whatever our beliefs are, to allow it to come into our vortex, if you may, is to be able to look at, I'm getting the video fixed. Don't worry, guys. I'm multitasking. My queen has taught me well, but you guys listen to the voice. The key is to look at what is not being said. And that is, I was a dad to hundreds, if not thousands of human beings on the planet through the work. Because what's fatherhood? What's parenthood? Leadership, learning how to communicate, help someone really become independent and become great human beings so that they can create a dynasty that ends up being a legacy for the rest of their lives or for the ones they leave behind for. And I realized I was being a father figure for everyone that I've connected, touched, moved, and inspired throughout my career for the last 2 decades, more than 2 decades. So it's a reframe, but it was not just a reframe to be fluff about it. It was really confronting the truth, communicating with the truth. And the truth of the matter is, when you really are clear about your why, when you're clear about your what, and you allow the universe to deliver the how while you take action with expectancy and conviction that it will come in the most unexpected, and what my queen said, in the most unexpected form, it just creates absolute contentment and fulfillment. I'm going to fix the video now, but
thank you, brother Sohan. And
Yeah.
you know, you and I've got to talk to you off the air because I resonate so much with a lot of what you said, especially the part about the distinction between harmony and balance, because I'm really big on that. I don't believe in a balanced life. You know, I don't believe it's possible to have a balanced life, especially if you want to be a high achiever and if you want to, you know, create something in business, you're not going to be balanced. But what you can have is harmony. I want to go to the right side of the panel because Michelle, Goldie, and Tehran have been really quiet the last half hour. So let's go ahead and let's start with Tehran and then go to Michelle and Goldie. Speaking of balance, let's try to add a little balance and a little harmony. Go ahead, Tehran.
Yeah, well, I wanted to chime in on what you were saying, Mo, about not having all the answers to it. But can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, about how do you write down and itemize exactly what the things are going to be. I think we just confuse communication with effective communication. And I think that's really key. Not knowing the answer is still communication. Like I can liken that to the business experience, which I'll probably do that more than the domestic relationship one. But we knew what we needed to do, and we willed that into existence, so to speak, because all of the team members that will come on over the years, at the right time, the right people come that specialize in things that we need done. I think the same thing happens in relationships too, I would say. That you don't have to have the answer. You're still communicating with yourself, with the universe, with the information you're getting, reading the other person reads. It's a process. It's a journey as you make it a sustainable relationship. Because the more you communicate effectively, the more you understand better, and the more you can communicate better.
Yeah, I feel that you don't have to communicate. I feel we're a human broadcast, and that communication speaks to those on that similar broadcast that you're on.
Yeah.
And they'll come into your life for that particular reason. And you think, wow, that's happening. But you're on that same vibration. So therefore, they're drawn into your now tangible reality.
I get what you're saying, Voss. It's this distinction of something coming from us as opposed to, or through us, as opposed to from us. And life is way more magical and mystical when you kind of see things through that way. Now, are we just creating it psychologically, or is there some element of truth to it? I don't know, right? But what I do know is it works for me, right? And I do know that it works for me. And speaking of things working for people, glad to see the cameras working again. Goldie, where do you stand? I know you've been watching. I really want to hear your take, because you know, like I said, communication has been a really big thing for you. You've been a communicator your whole life, whether it's through art, through music, through your career, and even in your personal life. And you know, Goldie, you've had actually some public personal relationships. You know, as a public figure, you've been in the tabloids, and you know, your relationships have kind of been out there a little bit. Where do you feel about this conversation so far?
And I loved your point that you made right before that. And somebody said something about, you know, magical and mystical. And I did grow up as a child in the public eye, but I had a terminally ill mother and a disabled father. And something really cool, Voss, about my mom is, as sick as she was always going on an adventure. She always chose to look at everything as an adventure, and that has nothing to do with communication, but I wanted to make sure that I made that point because Mo kind of brought that up. My question way back was when Voss and Sohan were talking about their relationship. And Michelle, I want to address this to you, and Carla as a counselor, and Gina, you inspired me thinking about this, is let's metaphorically say these two have a really great, you know, relationship, and they're putting in spices into their tea and what have you. Okay, that looks really, really great. So to Carla, to Michelle, business, to Gina, if somebody has a situation or a relationship, do they have to have this magical partner? Or if they have a partner that maybe they're comfortable with, or maybe the romance is gone, or Michelle, maybe the luster for the growth in that business isn't there yet. Is that something that, Carla, can you teach? Can you give us some nuggets or some skills that maybe can cultivate something, or are not to be dismal, but are we dead in the water? Or do you have to have the magic to have hope? or can something be taught? That's what I was thinking about, because I know a lot of people listening and watching right now are like, oh, look at these two gorgeous people. I'd love to have that, but I've got over here, or he won't let me, I've got this, and and I'm thinking, what can we do to inspire them? Or Michelle, what could we do to breathe some communication into somebody's business that's just thinking that they're at the end of their rope with COVID and they're trying to hang on, but there's got to be something positive and encouraging that we can say to people in whatever type of relationship that they're in. And God, I can't say your name right. Tehran, say it.
Tehran.
Now I got it. Tehran. Anything that you guys can all add, and women, ladies, to that. That's what I was just hoping to shed a little light to the people listening and watching on that. Tehran.
Well, I'd like to jump in really quick. I absolutely believe that the way you communicate with yourself, what you're telling yourself, whether it's negative or positive, if you're telling yourself COVID has kicked my butt, it's killed my business, there's no hope, then as everybody's been talking about, that's what you're going to manifest, right? You're going to be stuck there. But when we start changing to more positive affirmations and say, you know what, I could adapt to this. COVID is bringing me a ton of opportunities. I haven't been successful in dating, but you know what? I've seen it out there, so I'm going to believe it's going to happen for me. So when we start communicating with ourselves, and we were talking about harmony a little bit before, and it's all about how we communicate masculinely, where we're talking outwards, and then also bringing in your feminine side, where you're communicating inwards, and you're bringing it into your soul. I call it my gut, which I'm like, when I get that gut feeling of something, then I know that's how I know the universe is communicating with me. But I need to make sure that I'm also communicating outwardly to let the universe know what I want. And you could change. Like I was 10 years ago, I'm going to get a little personal here. 10 years ago, I was absolutely rock bottom. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my future. I was 35 after a back surgery. My surgeon said, you're never going to work again. And I stayed there for a while, and then I allowed lessons to show me and the universe to communicate with me that life could be better, that I could have a life worth living. And so I started to take all of that stuff in, and I now own a wealth management company. I'm in a career that I never thought that I would want to have. I was in 2008. I'm like, Occupy Wall Street, the wealthy suck. And then I got educated. I allowed information to come in, which is a way of communication. And I said, you know what? I could have this whole different world. And if I could communicate, financial freedom could be possible for everybody, and I could bring that hope. It's my job then to communicate that to the world. So there's the only time there's no hope is when you decide you make that choice that there is no hope. So anybody that's listening to that's kind of down on their luck, all you have to do is make a decision that life is going to be better, communicate it to yourself and communicate it to the world. And then that's when the magic happens.
Yeah.
Great point.
I would add, everything you said absolutely resonated. I would say, Goldie, that's wonderful, because people can be watching this and being like, oh my God, they're magical. They bring each other turmeric because they're psychic. But everybody I express in a different way. Every single person is so unique, as are couples, right? So never compare yourself. My favorite quote, because it kicks my own butt, amateurs compete. Don't ever compete with anybody else. Professionals, as a human being, I compete with myself. So if I want a relationship like that feeling, I can have it because I want it. And just like Gina said, the how, I don't care how. It's a desire. It's here.
Yeah.
But some people are more lax. Like they want, they'll look at that and be like, wow, that's lovely, but that's kind of not my style, which it's fine because they're two different people.
Exactly.
What's your style? What brings you that feeling? And I do work with couples, and I would say, what do you want? Figure out, like, I think, what do you want? Figure out what your why is. What the heck do you want? Don't be ashamed of it, and unabashedly go for it. Unapologetically be yourself. Don't be afraid to ask. Go for it, because a lot of times we're like, well, what will people think? What do I want in a relationship? What do I want in finance? And Don't get me started on finances, Michelle. I was the same way. I had so many horrible paradigms around money and finance, and money's evil and poverty's virtuous and blah blah blah. It's like I got over that real quick. But it's just like it's an energy. Love is an energy. Relationships are an energy. Finances are an energy.
Right.
Get it right, people. Results
right.
don't lie.
Yep. And I just wanted to add to that as well. Figure out who you are first, then you figure out what you want. If you don't know who you are, you won't really know what you want in life. Start there. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. I think that's so crucial because we're throwing around a lot of words. So I've been listening a little bit, right? And all the words are so important. And energy is important. And fatherhood, as Sohan was saying earlier, there are all these terms. And I think what it comes down to is when we're communicating, and I'd like to hear your input in this, the precision of communication. Right. On the one hand, it is what do we want? But if I don't know who I am, and I've been trained by my parents to want to be A, and it doesn't resonate with me, then it's not going to happen. I can manifest all I want. It's not going to happen because it's not in alignment. So when we're talking communication, especially in a team, whether it's relationships or another team, in that communication, you have to be precise. And sometimes you have to engage in what I don't like doing, because been through it too often, is like meta communication, right? Where you say, well, but I really meant to say this. No, but I really meant to say that. But you got to sort of get through that, right? So what about precision and the different cultures of communication, either at home or in business? I mean, leading teams, you've got a whole bunch of people. How do you make sure that the communication works?
Yeah.
I was going to say intent,
Okay.
and I think Gina said speaking from the heart. Quick example. A friend of mine and I was in the middle of my grad program. A friend of mine and I met for a drink. We went up to the bar. She had been in traffic. She walks up and she's like really into manifesting and positive affirmations. And she goes, the guy's like, oh, hey, how are you today? She goes, greatly favored and highly blessed. Can I have a da-da-da-da? And he didn't hear her. And so he said, oh, that's great. And she goes, did you hear what he said to me? And I was like, well, I think he thought you meant something else. Oh, no, because she said highly favored and abundantly blessed. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And so she's like, what? What's his problem? And it was like a miscommunication. So we sat down. I said, I'm going to go up and ask what he thought you said. So I said, excuse me, sir. I'm doing a project for school. When my friend walked up, what did you think she said? He said, I thought she said, I had a horrible day and I'm not feeling well or something. And we started laughing. And she goes, I said, highly favored and abundantly blessed. He goes, I did not hear that. I did not hear that. Because she walked up out of her traffic and go, highly favored and abundantly blessed. Can I have a martini? And he's like, all he probably heard was, I've had a shitty day. Give me a martini. But it was such a learning moment, because you can say one thing, but if you're coming from an energetic place that's not in alignment, they only hear what they feel.
Yeah. Listen with the ears of the heart. I say, listen with the ears of the heart.
Carla, that's, for most people, they may just see a trivial moment, but there's actually something profound there. And for me, it's the profoundness comes from the bartender, because it's an example of how human beings are only capable of seeing what they have or what they assume or what they project, and how little people can see. And the same is true in all facets of life, whether it's love or whether it is opportunities in business or whether it is anything that's magical, anything that a lot of people seek to obtain in life. You can't have it if you don't see it. A person could walk, a person could walk in a room and walk out with the next business partner that they're going to start a major company with, or they can walk in a room and just sit there and not see an opportunity. A person can walk in a room and walk out with the best friend that they'll ever have. It's really about the seeing and having that expanded consciousness. And, I know that this conversation, most of the people watching this at home are business professionals, and a lot of the terms that we've been using might be a little quote unquote woo woo, but you know what? It is what it is. There's really a lot of my personal experience that I can speak on that has been very relevant that expanded consciousness, that open-mindedness, that ability to see the world through the lens and through the eyes of an artist, an abstract painter, if you will. How can we use the experiences that we have, the opportunities that we have, mold, shape, and shift them into something beautiful, a contribution to society, a contribution to the world, to leave the world a better place than it was from the moment that we got here. And speaking of people that are going to leave the world a better place than the moment they got there, let's go to Caitlin Mendoza, because I know that she's been off and on a little bit, but I want to get you involved, Caitlin, because you've been really quiet and taking notes. I'm just going to put you on the spot and let you rock with it. The floor is yours. I want to hear your insights.
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi was giving issues, and so I didn't even hear the topic that you guys ended up going on, because then I deal with my dog. He ripped up some books, so that was fun. But what was the topic? So I can go back on it.
So first off, I think that is a real important lesson that Caitlin just showed us. You see, she's authentic. She's not making it up. She's not pretending she listens. So I want to honor you, Caitlin, for your authenticity and your integrity. So clap for Caitlin for being honest and authentic.
Sorry, guys. Dealing with a puppy here. He's not
we appreciate that. No, the thing is, Caitlin, we've been talking about a whole host and a whole myriad of different things. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to just go back to the basics with you. When it comes to communication, what is something in your life, an area that you feel the communication is either missing, or the communication could be better, or the communication is just not fulfilling you? What is something right now that you can express and kind of share with us? And thank you, Carla, for listening.
That's funny. I think it's just pretty much, I think what I can use in my life right now is like people who are hiring, because that's like, so for example, I was emailing this company I got a first interview. I got a second interview. Second interview went really well. They sent me some questionnaire things to do, so I could stand out from the other candidates. I followed up like a week later, because I still didn't hear back, because they said if you can get these questions back ASAP for us, because they were literally emailing me back to back, so fast. And then all of a sudden I sent in that questionnaire and I didn't hear anything. And they said they need to make a decision ASAP.
So the art of the follow-up. The art of the follow-up in business, whether you're looking for a client, whether if you're looking for a client. So let's go to Michelle on that point, because Michelle is someone, Caitlin, that has closed a lot of deals in her life. And Michelle understands the art of the follow-up, which is what you're referring. So Michelle, what can you say for someone like Caitlin, who's looking for the next project, looking for the next opportunity, really hustling and communicating with different people, but is not really getting the results that they want? As someone, Michelle, who's a seasoned veteran in business, and I also want Tehran to touch on this as well. But Michelle, what can you say about the art of the follow-up, the way to go about it?
From my experience, it's ask a ton of questions. If you're not getting the results that you want, then you guys are at an impasse. So you have to ask what do I need to do? What are the next steps? What are you looking for? Can you clarify this for me? And so when I get to a stalemate, or I'm not sure where my client is, I just keep asking more and more questions. I think the key is to be more interested than interesting. And then you have to listen to, instead of thinking about what the next question is really take that to heart and allow yourself then to then process it. That, to me, just asking questions is one of the things that leads to miscommunication all the time, arguments, because especially when we're talking about email, text, and we're not actually being able to look at the person and see somebody shake their head like Carla is right now, or look at their eyes and see if they're looking up or down or away. Asking those questions is so paramount, because that's the only, especially if we're just reading their answers, that's the only way that we're going to get that clarity of what they really want and what they really need. And then just continue to follow up and just be there for that person and really say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And don't be afraid to say, like, hey, do you mind if I follow? I'm always like, they're like, well, I'm not really ready right now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it on my calendar to follow up with you in 2 weeks. Is that okay? So get permission to kind of harass them a little bit.
So Michelle, I want to share a story because what you said is really profound, and it reminds me of this really life-changing night that happened for me about 4 years ago. I was actually at a charity event, a charity gala. It was something to do with one of the United Nations chapters here in LA. And, you know, I was there and it was interesting, but it happened to be a very late evening event. So I decided to go to the bar of this event. And by the way, Michelle, there was politicians there and the mayor and senators and congressmen and all these lobbyists. It was a pretty high-end, sophisticated political event, but I was not really too interested, honestly. And I went to the bar and I just started drinking at the bar, and there's a gentleman next to me, and he was an older gentleman, and I came to find out after the fact that he was one of the most powerful lobbyists in all of Washington, D.C. He shall remain nameless, but the point being, this gentleman interacted with senators and congressmen and all sorts of different people. And what was fascinating was I was there and, you know, I was drinking away and I was asking him questions. And I was asking him questions about, oh, well, what do you do? And, you know, how does, what's it like being a lobbyist in Washington, D.C.? And which senator, you know, do you personally interact with that's the biggest jerk? Which senator do you personally interact with that I see on C-SPAN that's a nice guy? And how did you get into it? And the whole time, Michelle, I spent about 2 hours. And after 2 hours, when I couldn't really function or walk anymore, I decided it was time to call it a night. But something real powerful happened, Michelle. Is at the end of the 2 hours, the gentleman looked at me and he said, "You know, Mo, you're the most interesting person that I've ever met." And we're talking about somebody that deals with congressmen and senators and someone that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, someone that deals with the most powerful people on the planet. And I had spent 2 hours doing nothing but ask him questions. And he told me that I'm the most interesting person that he met. Now, this was a major breakthrough for me. It was a breakthrough moment. Because going to your point, Michelle, it's not about just being the most interesting man, because this guy is used to people that are trying to show off all the time. But even if he wasn't, the same principle would hold true. It's about being the most interested. So, Caitlin, was that a breakthrough for you tonight?
Yeah, a little bit. I like how she said, like, kind of not harass them or like kind of give them permission, like, hey, I'm asking, can I follow up in 2 weeks? Because this person I've been following up at least every 2 weeks, and they're just saying, oh, we need a couple more weeks. And I'm like, but you guys said you need someone ASAP. So I just feel like they're kind of keeping me like in a circle. It's like, just communicate with me.
So what we'll do, Caitlin, is after the fact, I'm going to introduce you to Michelle. And what I know about Michelle is she's a leader of women. So I think, Michelle, you're willing to give Caitlin some one-on-one advice, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll make that connection after the fact. So guys, if you're just tuning in, this is Amazon Fire TV. You're watching Monday Night Live. We're about to go to the final segment of the show. I want concluding thoughts from the folks. But before we get into that, Dr. Natalie Forrest, quick end of the segment, follow up, and kind of set the tone for how we want to close out the show. Dr. Forrest, floor is yours.
Whoa, that came out of left field. Nice communication there, Mo. Well, I think we're getting a lot of nuggets, and I'd really like to maybe for the rest of the show focus a little bit more on the leadership team sort of communication, because I know team is also relationships. I do think that teams, especially because there are so many people in business, leading yourself, leading others, how do you communicate with yourself, how to communicate with your team. And I think very often, if you're at peace with yourself, you know, we do talk energy, right? If you're at peace with yourself, you can listen better to others, and then through your communication, you can empower others to do what Caitlin just did, and also be honest and open. So I think if we can talk a little bit about the team aspect of communication. I know I keep harping on that, but I'm from a different country, and I have interactions with people from a lot of different countries, and I'm a very focused person on words, and words mean something different to everybody. So I always go to energy, but that would be something. And I would love to maybe start it out with Goldie here, because she's always listening, and I feel like there's something on her mind as well. She takes in everything, and then she comes out with some really important insights, and she has the experience of leading and communicating to a lot of teams as well. So if that's okay, let's go there.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to kick it over to Tehran in a second. And Carla, you made a point with your story about she said one thing and he heard something completely different. And you also said you like to be more intuitive and you didn't do a lot of research for this particular panel. You wanted to just let it flow out of you. I love that about you. And I love doing that too. But sometimes I come across, thank you, Dr. Forrest, wherever you went to, as a dippity doula. So I did do some research for the last couple of days. One of the things that I found very interesting pertaining to teams was people that are in charge of doing the presenting. When they present, one of the things that it said to be better in communication is to over communicate, and that can go, and that's why I wanted to ask Tehran in a second on his take on this, because of what he does, and I wanted to hear more about that. Mo, as you know, in wrestling, I can think of a story when I got my butt chewed out so badly, like almost physically beat down, because in sports entertainment, you don't get a verbal beating, you get physically like abused. That's just what it is. It's a very testosterone driven hothead back in the locker room, and things explode. And I just remember I came down the ramp and the pyro was going, and I made a little motion or something. It was some championship, tag team championship, Mo. And all I remember is when I thought I was doing such a great job, I thought, oh, surely I'm going to be praised and everybody's going to love what I did. They're going to love the promo that I cut there. And then I got backstage and like somebody got in my face and they literally grabbed me by the neck and they were shaking me. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And he's, what do you call that? What do you call it? That wasn't big enough. You didn't communicate enough. You weren't bigger than life. The people in the back of that 40,000 seated arena could not see this. You needed to do this. So when I was researching and they were talking about over communicating, a lot of the people that do present, they have this assumption that, well, if I speak and I speak this for this amount of time, at least 50% of the people are going to get what I had to say. They're going to process it. But so many times when they actually go back, it's not 50%. It's 2% or 1.5% of the people really retained or got anything. So Tehran, I wanted to ask you about that. Can you over communicate in your past history, in your field of work? Is there a certain level that you like to shoot for or above, or what's your experience on that? Because you were quiet over the last few questions, and I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to what you guys were saying earlier. A lot of people have been saying the same thing. It's really effective. Effective communication is really listening. It's active listening. So in team building, I think it was Carla. Carla, you said it earlier in response to Natalie about how do you get so precise on things and its intent. And if we translated that word into business, it'll be, what's the mission statement? What's the vision and mission or the goal of the group or the company? And this is what allows certain language to be used. Language can actually disrupt communication. You guys were talking about it earlier about body language and, the communication is information, data going back and forth where it's comprehensible. Now we can do something with the information that we got. We turn that into language, and then we have slang inside the language, and we have body language on top of that. And I guess you meant this when you shouldn't have said that. But if we have a mission to go somewhere, this is where that mystical stuff that everybody's been talking about earlier too. When the intent is so pure, that's why when it gets metaphysical, you're probably going to hit it dead on, because you're not going to mess it up with your words and your perspectives and your paradigms and I guess you meant this, and because the last person said this to me, you must mean that to me. Well, it goes back to what's the intent, what's the mission? Are you actively listening for that? I had a situation actually recently on a phone call a few days ago, and so the conversation pretty much went, what is this? There was an answer. So the next statement was, well, I don't understand. I still don't understand what this is. The response was, I just told you. So without using all the dialogue of what happened in the conversation, if you've ever found yourself in that, well, then you telling me isn't good enough, because you're not effectively, I still don't understand. And a lot of times I did my job. Well, no, you didn't do your job. Your job is for me to understand. Even in an argument, if we're disagreeing, I should be able to actively listen enough to go and represent your point of view, even though I don't represent it, but I have to understand it. So again, going back to team building, especially with businesses, a lot of that is taken out of the way when you have a mission that you're trying to achieve. And then you and the person you're communicating with are only focused on taking care of that mission. So a lot of active listening actually plays a part in that.
So Tehran, what you're really alluding to is leadership with empathy, right? Stepping into another person's shoes, stepping into another person's perspective, stepping into another person's feelings, and not just trying to prove a point or say, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, but really feeling what another person is feeling. And is that what you're...
Kind of. I mean, that would be great, but it's not mandatory. Like, that would be a great component to add to it, and it actually does help. But it's being purpose-driven more than I want to make sure I understand what you're saying so that we can get the job done. So I don't want to wait to find out that what you're trying to tell me is something irrelevant to the purpose. That to me is ineffective communication. So it's really being purpose-driven, mission-driven, intent-driven, like Carla was saying. And then if you can add empathy to that, understanding you can't get to the goal without your team, so you have to care. And the more you care, the better you communicate, more effectively communicate. So yes, it is a plus, but not mandatory. Not mandatory.
You know what's interesting? When it comes to communication with teams and leadership, one thing that I've seen amongst corporates and a lot of these entrepreneurs and business owners, including CEOs, when they run teams directly or supervised or indirectly, I believe people are like herding cats. You know, running a team is like herding cats. Everyone's got their own personality, everyone's got their own needs, everyone's got their own wants, and everyone's got this whole way of having to get results. And everyone's got their own ways of having to feel motivated or inspired or want to take action to get the outcomes they're supposed to get for their roles. And one big challenge that I've seen is this example. They can't connect somehow the needs to meet those wants or needs that they have and communicate in that language that the other person has to understand. Classic example is you'll see people in business, most times the languaging they use in marketing is their own language, not the customer's language. And that's not communicating the customer's language. So for example, you know, we work with a lot of our clients who are in the energetic space, and they speak about energy and, you know, having to be able to connect. But that's not the customer language. That's their language because that's what they understand. Fifth dimension, right? That's our language. That's not the customer's language. And it had to be broken down to understand what that is. So for example, business owners, you listening out there, think about what the symptoms are of your customers in order to know how to tap into that customer language, symptoms of the results they want to get. So if it's wanting to experience, you know, they want to experience self-love. Okay, well, they don't come out saying, you know what, Mo, I'm really not feeling self-love today. That's not the language they use. There's something that they're showing off as an example or a symptom to self-love not being there, and the not enoughness. So what is that? Figure that out, and that way you can lead your customer through to wanting to say, okay, sign the dotted line, let's work together. The other side, you got the example of people in the companies and they're working. And we speak a lot about core of needs of what people have. Some people want to really feel the importance and the significance and the validation that they require for them to get off their butt and do something with their work. Some of them just need pure certainty. They don't care about the accolades. They don't care about the recognition. They just want stability. They want to know for sure what's going to happen. Great. Can you deliver that? And there was an example of this guy who was struggling with a client he was sitting with me when I was coaching, and he was bitching about it all the time, right, Mo? And he was saying, I don't understand. I mean, I'm doing so much for this guy and helping him with his marketing, and here he is being so ungrateful and being rude to me on the phone. And now this guy, you know, when you look at him, you can't think he's going to get so touched and felt about it because he's this huge rugby boy player, you know, big man, 7 feet tall, all that. But he's a softie and a marshmallow inside getting affected. And I asked him, I said, so what really gets that guy tick? If you look at what he's really interested in, does he really like the praise? Does he like to be showered with gifts and surprises? Does he like the idea of having to feel certain about things? Does he like the unknown? Because clearly he doesn't like the unknown. He says, I need to know what's going on. You need to tell me in advance. You guys are not telling me that, and I'm not going to be happy. So he's telling you that, but you seem to enjoy the unknown. So what is it? And he said, well, that's right. He likes the known. He likes the certainty. I said, great. How about you just told him in advance as to what's about to happen and give him a heads up? See his reaction. Would he praise you? Would he say nothing? Or would he be calm? Guess what happens? A week later, we sit down, follow up on this conversation, and the guy turns around and has a completely new story about his client, saying, "Do you know what? That guy was he acknowledged the fact that I gave him a heads up a week in advance about the email and the campaign on Google that we were going to run for him." And we said, "Booyah! There you go. That's what it is. Speak the customer's language." And the language doesn't have to be words. Only they can be the unspoken. Listen to what they really need.
So that's powerful, but I want to ask you a question, Sohan, because I understand that. I understand the idea of shaping and kind of changing the way you approach people to go more towards their language, if you will. I'm at a point now, Sohan, where if I know my personality, and so if there's someone that wants to do business with me, and I know that it's going to be a headache, I don't care how much money I can make from the business deal. I really don't. I'm not going to entertain it. And the same is true for my friendships. The same is true for whoever's in my life. So what do you say, like, is there a balance? Is that, what's your perspective on the way I look at things as opposed to that approach, and kind of how you see those two different avenues?
Too easy. I say that because it is. If I had 1 week to live, and if I had to have the best people in my life to live the quality life that I want to live right now in my personal life, who would I want to surround myself with? Number one. Number two, if I wanted to serve any client right now, and if I had 1 week to go, who would be my dream client? I would only want to work with them because I got to be careful. I got 1 week. Hello, I live every single day being reminded of how much time is valuable for my life, and I got to realize that even if whether I'm at a growth phase, a momentum phase, or a scale phase in my leadership or business, I have to always be careful about the people that I want to serve, because I don't want no nightmare, right? And so when I choose to say I'm going to communicate and only choose people that I can enjoy time with, where we can really love, where work doesn't feel like it's work, but it's actually just part of being or part of life, then it becomes so much easy. We keep using the word. What are those 4 words, Bob?
Let it be easy.
Let it be easy.
That's beautiful. And because a lot of people that watch this are entrepreneurs and are leaders and are interested in leadership and own their own businesses, I want to take a moment to make a point. And I know, Tehran, you deal with a lot of business coaches, and I think your clientele and your audience should hear this as well. Not everyone is your client, right? Not everyone that's offering you a check is your client. I think that it's just as important for people that are in business to vet the clients as it is for the clients to vet the people that they do business with. And since so many people, especially Tehran, in quote unquote business coaching, because there's a lot of, there's a lot of business coaches out there. You and I both know this. They're in survival mode as opposed to in a place of being able to thrive. They sometimes compromise their integrity and they compromise themselves because they need a check. And that is not a way to ever have a fulfilled life. And so my message today for those aspiring entrepreneurs is never under any circumstances compromise your integrity. Never under any circumstances compromise who you are for a check, because it's a losing game and it's just not worth it. Fulfillment supersedes everything else. And I think the words I'm saying are so magical that the camera in Australia is turning off and on.
Your vibration is getting in here,
absolutely.
Mo.
You're all up in there.
I'm pushing the vortex.
No, if I could tell you what you were saying, you were hitting it right on the head. That's what business coaching and business coaches, they have it rough. I don't want to just beat up on them, because they're responsible for holding the hand of the client, which is the entrepreneur, and walking them through this long process of building a sustainable company. They're not just consultants. They're different. They're like teachers. It's like a teacher getting paid so little when they're so valuable in cultivating the person that's going to come out of the school. And that's how, coaches have to. Unfortunately, like you said, there's this balance of balancing that with these high ticket opportunities coaching affords you. So now if I'm communicating, or rather talking, or rather exchanging data with you, and I'm charging you hourly to do it, and the goal is me making money, I cannot be effective at communicating with you for a long time. Now, this is a relationship we're building.
Yes. And Tehran, there's situations where I know business coaches that have helped clients, and a year after the fact, 6 months after the fact, 2 years after the fact, the business did not go the way that was intended. And who's public enemy number one? The business coach.
Right.
Because the business coach is the person that was supposed to help me be successful. They made money, and now look at where I am. And I know a lot of business coaches who deal with stress and headaches and just all sorts of nonsense that they could have very easily avoided had they gone through the vetting process. Had they said, you know what?
And if they would focus on the what is the mission. If the mission is helping the client, see, here's what happens. A coach will get in that position, and now you stop coaching and you start just making money off of a client. And that's how a client at the end has this story to tell. That's the only way that can happen. You stop coaching and start consulting and doing with the client. I want to work on this. I want to work on that. Now you become a consultant. Now you're a specialist. Now you're solving a specific problem. That's not what the job of a coach. Coaches is say, come on, champ, let's get this ring. And it's going to take a few practices. It's going to take a few games. We're going to keep on going, So I just want to compound that and conclude that part with what you said as far as, and this is kind of a harsh thing, so please bear with me, if you will. So I don't really believe in, I don't even want to say it almost, but I don't believe in.
Say it, man. This is the Los Angeles Tribune. We're unfiltered. We're live. We say what we want to say. Go ahead.
I'm going to compare it really in business, but it's applicable in all things, even if the coaches who have this relationship with their clients or potential clients. No friends. I have associates and I have comrades, right? I know it sounds real racist and binary, but my associates are people that I know, I greet, I'm cordial with, I meet, I may see every day, we're friendly. There's no room for disrespect or negative energy in any of these two relationships. But one is I associate with you. I may enjoy associating with you. The other, we have a common agenda. We link up together for a different reason than with the associates. So if a coach has clients and non-clients, that's it. If you're a client, if you're a comrade, if we have the same agenda and mission, it's let's get this business growth. Let's get this business.
And it's interesting, Tehran, because the way I look at it is like martial arts, right? Where there's karate, there's judo, there's taekwondo, there's all sorts of different things. Because my style in business is actually very different than that. So I really just go through life seeing human beings as human beings. Whether or not there's money being exchanged or not, I really don't change how I look at people. But it's really fascinating how I have my style of martial arts and you have your style of martial arts, and both of us can kick ass, right? It's just a different style. I want to say though, it is, I think there is a time and place to really have that compartmentalized approach, right? And perhaps that's something that I should just in self-reflection maybe look a little more deeper in.
That may not work for you. What I'm saying is in law, it's a process, not the process. That's
Absolutely.
just a process. My character, the way I interact with people. If we just get to the bottom line, get to the bottom line.
Absolutely, I agree. So we're rolling in the last 8 minutes of the show. So let's do a quick 1 minute each. Final thoughts, final feelings. I want to start with Gina. Final thoughts on this evening's show and what you're left with as a final gem of wisdom for the audience.
Well, I want to go back to Dr. Forrest's last question, maybe a half hour ago in this final segment, around leadership and communication. And I was reflecting as everyone was talking on when I became a much better leader. I found myself in a leadership position at 24, 23 years old, fresh out of college and running a program at a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. And the first couple of years were rough because going back to what Michelle said, I want to raise up this point's excellent and underline it. It was the internal dialogue, the things that I was telling myself were making me a poor communicator outwardly. My inward communication was negative, and so my outward communication was very difficult to stay in the positive. Once I got my internal dialogue in line and identified the messages, going back to what I think Carla was saying earlier, the subconscious messages that have been programmed in, becoming aware of those, clearing up those as much as I could, and then putting it into practice. That's when I became a much better leader and a much better communicator. Also, I've jotted down so many notes of all the beautiful things you all have said for upcoming articles. So we'll see what comes out of that. Thank you all, everybody.
Thank you for that, Gina. Goldie.
I was writing down notes. You busted me. Thank you. Right from the get-go, when you were asking me about things and giving a great fanfare, I was thinking in my mind, what I do is important because I could physically kill somebody or hurt somebody. And then right away, you were just like, not having it. You were like, well, you could hurt somebody really badly in business, or you could hurt somebody really bad. And I just thought to myself, there you go again, like having it all be about you or having your blinders on. And what I took home from this panel tonight was what Dr. Forrest was saying, just about, words mean something different to her being from Germany, or you're in Australia, and body language. And I wasn't thinking about that aspect of communication before tonight. So I appreciate the butt kicking and the refresher course on everybody hears and interprets and sees things with different lenses. And then whoever made the point about, oh God, it's the end of the day for me. I so apologize. I swear I'm not as old as I'm acting. What was I going to say? That, oh, damn it, Tehran, it was a point that you made, and it was really good. And I'm sure when somebody else is talking, it'll pop into my head, but it was good. I guess my research was nothing what you all brought to the table tonight. And I thank everyone and the Los Angeles Tribune for having such an open, raw, real conversation. And Mo, you're so good about letting people kind of go on their tangents. You're not like this dictator going to control it all. And that's in its own.
Excuse me, Goldie, do you think all Middle Eastern men are dictators? What's that supposed to be?
Virgin asshole. No, that's not
okay.
Thank you for being a man and putting words into my mouth.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Goldie. Let's go to Michelle. Final thoughts.
Oh, great. I get to follow that up. I've been taking notes as well all evening. And one of the things that have stuck with me was one of the first things that Carla actually said. And she said, we listen with our emotions. And you listen with your emotions internally based on your state. And so sometimes we got to communicate with ourselves of just changing our physiology and going from a negative to a positive affirmation. Maybe it's putting on some music. But then we also need to communicate based on whoever you're talking to, what their emotions are, what their state is. And sometimes we need, go back to what Natalie was asking about and leadership. And so sometimes it's just really learning on how do you communicate with your team members? Tehran was talking about getting people, a mission and vision statements. Well, part of that is learning how to communicate with each person, whether it be visually, auditorily, or kinesthetically, and getting them enrolled into the ultimate vision. And really, any communication is the reason why we're having communication is to get to one role. It's to figure out, where each other person stands. Maybe it's to take, to decide what the next action is. Maybe it's to, to come back, or maybe it's to, find your soulmate. And that's the purpose of the communication. But there's always an end game to communication. So really, communication is your foundation to any type of relationship you have. And I think just by listening to the 9 of us tonight, you could really realize how everybody else's communication style and what's important to them as they communicate is vastly different. Now think about that as different billions of people in the world. And that just really reflects back on how much we need to use our 2 ears to listen. So that way we could do our best part of being an active listener and being the best communicator we can.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And one of our viewers, Carlton Hoskins, is saying, you are not old, Goldie. So it's official, okay? So Goldie, you are not old, okay? So just letting you know.
Thank God we let that one out.
Final thoughts, Gina.
Gina, you're muted, Gina. There you go.
I already gave my final thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no more thoughts.
That's right. Final thoughts, Carla.
Final thoughts. Yeah, I just picked up so many gems for everybody. And I would say, in therapy, we have to meet people where they're at. You have to meet people where they're at. So I think if we're all vessels, we're all receptors, we're all radio stations. Like we have to tune in. Like you said, sometimes you don't get along with people, but if you want to be effective and have something well, whether you end up working with them or not, you have to get on the same radio station for that communication. If it's a long relationship or a short relationship. And I was taking notes, and it's like, think about that game we used to play when we were younger, sitting in a circle, the telephone game. You said like, oh, that flower smells pretty. And then it ended up like, oh, she has gas. It's like the game of telephone, just communication. You said billions of people in the world. It's just one big old bad game of telephone. And, what frequency are you on? What is your expectations? And what atmosphere is going on inside? I think Gina touched on it. Love is the most powerful energy and frequency. And if you can just wrap up everything you say in love, and what is your goal? What is your goal? What is your point? Where are you sailing? What port are you going to? You can't just get into a relationship with somebody and expect to end up at some port of call that's fabulous. You have to have a goal. Where are you going? What's your intent? Do it with love, and it'll be always powerful.
Thank you, Carla. I agree. Love is definitely the most powerful force in the universe. Speaking of love, I mean, these two are in love. You can just tell. Let's go ahead to Vas and Sohan. Final thoughts.
My final thoughts would be definitely when you're leading teams, lead with heart, lead with integrity, lead with intuition. The vetting process is extremely important. Trust what your intuition is telling you. Don't bypass that and then go, oh, I just made the wrong decision. That client's going to be with me for the next year. Trust, align, trust in who you are and what you have to offer, and allow your clients to see your vulnerability and human side. We're not just a business. We're not just a title. We're a person. We're a human heart. We're a vessel and a source, and we're here to actually serve humanity. I'd like to lead with that.
In December 2 years ago, I made a phone call. I was driving around, and I had a point where there was no business, so I decided to pull over. And when I say business, I was Ubering, which was against my egocentric communication that took place at the time. Said, do not Uber. You're a reputed business owner, and you will get back on track, and you don't need to Uber. And yet I did it. But after going through a point of being emotionally bankrupt and financially almost filing for bankruptcy, in that moment where I stopped, and that one afternoon, I decided to pick up the phone, make the phone call, and speak to this guy and say, I'm sorry, I judged you. And I just need to know what I need to do, because you know something that I need help with, and I need that help so I can become a man from a boy. And we both shed a tear together intimately. And then he said, I will do whatever it takes to make sure you can get that result. And from that day on, my entire life changed, and rest is history where I sit today. And what I want to say is this: don't wait for yourself to get emotionally bankrupt. Don't wait for yourself to be financially bankrupt for you to turn around and have an honest conversation with that someone, and to apologize if need be. And most importantly, to ask for help. Definitely. Because it's totally okay to ask for help. And that's where it all begins.
So what Sohan and myself are here to do tonight is we're here to break stereotypes of Middle Eastern men and East Asian men. We're not all dictators and Uber drivers. We're so much more. Okay. So who has not gone with the final thought, Natalie? Who are we missing?
Caitlin went. Tehran. I think everybody. Tehran, did you go with the final thoughts as well?
I'm just going to share one thought that I gained this evening that was really profound to me. I actually said empathy is not mandatory, and that's incorrect when you mentioned that, Mo. Because even when a person is a comrade, and another thing you guys all have mentioned is the love component. But even if a person is just if a person is on the same agenda as me, or we have the same agenda, or building a team rather, or whether or not you're going to become a person on my team or on our team, you have to share our mission. I have to care about you to a certain extent to even start that process. I really have to care, because you can be such a gem to the mission, but I have to learn how to communicate effectively with you so that the mission doesn't lose out on having your contribution to it. Even when I separate it into the binary associates or comrade, with the people that are associates, they just don't have the same mission, but it has to be a relationship wrapped in love, because every interaction has to be that. And Michelle, you mentioned earlier about the self-talk. My Facebook page is a tree hugging situation if you ever go there, because I post what I want to wake up and see for the self-talk that I'm going to start the day, because I can't allow any room for anything other than the fluffy goods feeling stuff that you guys more eloquently express than I do. But right on, I'm with you all actually on that. Exactly. So I do change that. You help me do that most with it. Empathy is mandatory.
Well, Tehran, I'm glad you took that away. I think that's a big breakthrough, because in my experience, empathy is the most powerful force, next to love, because Carla's talking about love. You can't really access love without empathy, right?
Yes.
They really go hand in hand. And what I've learned, Tehran, and I can tell just by hearing you, and this is the first time we've spoken, you're a very strategical person. I can tell, Tehran, you're a Machiavellian, Art of War, Niccolo Machiavelli, 48 Laws of Power kind of guy, right? I could just tell by hearing that. And there's a time, am I correct in my assessment?
I read those books. I don't know if I'm that type of guy.
Well, the strategy, right? You're very strategical. But at the end of the day, I think there's a time and place for that. And when you have that in your back pocket, but you also operate from empathy, I think that's the ultimate warrior. I think that's really when you're at the height of consciousness, when you can be Machiavellian or understand Machiavelli, but you operate from empathy. That combo, I think, is an unstoppable force in this universe.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Caitlin, final thoughts, and then Natalie, and we're going to wrap up the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we're trying to wrap it up soon, but I just kind of was taking some notes with everyone's when they were saying their final thoughts, just because I felt like it was really everything that I really learned during this. But like I said earlier, I think the action that's taken after the communication is just so important, because that's how you really know someone's really actively listening. Because, if they're glazing over you, it's like, I just said this to you 5 minutes ago and you just did what we just talked about. Like, that's just never going to go anywhere. So that's just so important. And then Carla's bar story really stood out to me earlier too. It's like, you could be saying something, but your eyes say something totally different, especially when it's noisy. Like, a bartender's like, wow, this person's like, give me a martini. Like, they're like, okay, they had a bad day. So it's just like, it's body language is so important. The action you take after communication is just so important. And that can go with relationship and business too. And I just think that's really important too. And then everything that Michelle said, I thought was really great as well. And like how always has an end game to communication, which is great. I think that's a really great phrase to use as well. But yeah.
Thank you for that, Caitlin. Natalie, in closing, what are your final thoughts this evening? I mean, what a unbelievable panel. I mean, this was really dynamic, synchronicity, the thoughts, the gems. I mean, I know we went a few minutes over time, but I want to thank all of our incredible guests for really graciously contributing. And let's give everyone a round of applause. And, sometimes when I speak, cameras turn off because of the magic, whether it's the camera in Australia or a camera in LA, you never know. Just like being the electricity just makes things happen. So Natalie, final thoughts in conclusion of this week's incredible show.
Well, I think the final thought is that every single panelist was in full integrity, willing to be vulnerable and share, and sharing from a point of love for anybody who's listening, anybody who's present on the other end, either today, tomorrow, next week. And I think that's where that empathic, peaceful communication comes from. And in other words, to me, what is always so important is the agreements that we make. And I'm not referring to the books and everything, but energetically, if I want to communicate, it starts with me. So I talk about the 3 R's. I talk about the agreements. How do I talk to myself? Everybody mentioned that. If I talk to myself a certain way, I set the energy, and that transfers to everybody else. If I want to be empowered, I also need to empower others. And like I said, so those agreements then mean we have to have different agreements with different people. And I agree with both Mo and Tehran, and probably everybody else. And by the way, Tehran, I'm insulted that I'm not your friend. But anyhow, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
No, but you are a comrade. You're a comrade, Natalie. Comrade.
He knows what I mean.
No one has ever called me a comrade.
But what I mean by that is, we do have friends, and sometimes we go into business with friends. But when we're in business, we still need to have agreements, and they need to be clearly communicated. So, regardless of where we are, the agreements need to be clear. Whether it's that we're writing a note on what kind of man we want to have, what kind of dog, what kind of house, we need to be very clear on how we communicate and what the words mean to us. Because in the end, any kind of communication is about feeling.
Yes.
No
Absolutely
words
right.
come out without feeling. So
Yeah.
I think this panel was awesome. Everybody provided so much input, and I'm just gonna wait for the next one when we all reconnect and shed light on some other things.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you to all the viewers watching. We want to quickly remind everyone, yes, thank you, round of applause again. We want to quickly remind everyone to tune in next week to find out how you can register for the upcoming event featuring so many incredible speakers. Join us next week. We'll have the link for you to officially sign up. We're super pumped up and excited about that. And we want to actually end this week's show. If you join us at our last event where we had tens of thousands of people join, you remember this incredible performance by our very own Goldilocks, who rocked the house with the live performance. So we're going to play that to close the show. Thank you, guys. Until next week, Amazon Fire TV.
Hey, everyone. We're the Goldilocks band. We're going to play another song. You might know this one. If you do, sing along. Oh, back here, Rod Saylor, my best friend, over here on the cajon and bongos, and our other bandmate, that guy.
That's right, I'm a nobody. Only the guy that's going to sing this song.
Serge Strobin on guitar and vocals. You ready?
I'm ready.
Wait, don't you just stop it?
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to?
All right, let's go.
Oh, yeah, because he says a cuss word. Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. Yeah! So take the photographs and still frames in your mind. Hang it on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on track. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Do it one more time. We'll break it down.
It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life.
Thanks, everybody. We're the Goldilocks band. Appreciate you.